you please state your name for the record?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Earl Duvall. I am with the law firm of Duvall and Klasnick, and I represent the applicant, Verizon Wireless. Good evening to all.
Why don't you just give us a quick run through on what?
Yeah. Absolutely, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I am here because Verizon Wireless has identified the need for an additional communication site within its existing network in Shrewsbury. We've identified what we refer to in the industry as a significant gap in coverage. I know that we submitted several documents and probably somewhat of a voluminous application to you folks. So what I have done, okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I have taken out what I think is the most important documents from our application. I have pieced those together in a couple handouts here that I probably can go through in 10 minutes or less with a very nice overview of the proposal. So if I may approach and distribute. I promise this will make it easier.
Promises,
Thanks.
promises. Thank you.
Second, excuse me.
We'll share one. Do you have another one of the,
We could take it.
that's okay, we need it just for our file.
I'll usually put these
Thank you very much. All right, perfect.
So the first document that I handed to you folks are just two sheets from the plans. The top document is the shows the site plan and the tower elevation, and the bottom document shows access to the proposed site. So what Verizon Wireless is proposing, we're proposing to construct a 100-foot monopole style tower on the about 60-acre parcel owned by St. John's High School. If you look at the site plan, and I tried to, mark this in color, we have leased from St. John's a 100 by 100 parcel, and you can see that I have traced that leased area with a green marker. We're proposing to fence in 50 by 50 of that leased area. And that leased area we'd propose to surround that with a 6-foot high chain link fence, and then topped with 3 strands of barbed wire, which, as you all might know, for safety reasons, for anti-climbing. You can see that inside the compound, you can see where the proposed location is to the monopole, the ice bridge over to the area that Verizon Wireless would locate its equipment. That is a 10-foot by 12-foot concrete pad. Verizon Wireless would propose to put its cabinets and an emergency power backup generator. You can see that there's a LP tank that is sort of in red there. Outside of the fenced-in compound is the transformer where the overhead electrical and telephone would come, to the outside of that compound. Just briefly with regards to the backup generator, that generator is just that, only used in the event of an emergency. So if there's a power outage, that backup generator would be kicked on so that we could maintain communication services. That generator is generally serviced once or run once a week. They cycle it for about 30 minutes. They do that remotely, and we can set that to, to cycle at any time, during the day. If you look at the tower elevation, again, it's a 100-foot monopole style tower. All cabling runs inside that monopole, across that ice bridge, and to Verizon Wireless's ground-based equipment. What's proposed, on the monopole are 12 panel antennas, along with remote radio heads and surge suppressors that are all located in behind those panel antennas. The proposed structure would be engineered and designed so that it would not only accommodate Verizon Wireless, but other wireless carriers as well. If we look to the bottom sheet, you can see my orange circle in the bottom left-hand corner. That's Main Street. We would use, in the beginning, the access would be an existing gravel road, an area that would go along the rear of the athletic fields then, and then go west and follow north along the western, boundary of the property up to you can see the green box, which is the 100 by 100 leased area. As you all may know, the northern part of the property where we are proposing to locate the tower, it does contain wetland areas. We have a notice of intent filed with the Conservation Commission, and I have the comments. The Conservation Commission has retained its own outside expert. The property is being reviewed. It was just reflagged last week, and I think they're scheduled to be back to the Conservation Committee later in July. So if we turn to the next sheet that I handed to you, the two top maps are what we call propagation maps. The one on the left is depicting existing sites and what the existing coverage is in this part of Shrewsbury. Now, if you look at the white area, what that white area signifies is where the gap in coverage is. It signifies poor service quality, low data throughput, unreliable, service. What we would consider, the gap in coverage. You can look. I've circled the proposed site in blue. The other sites that are all circled in red, those are existing sites. I've labeled those. So, for example, the Worcester North 2, it's 133-foot installation. It's on a rooftop. The one to the top is a monopole. We're at 108 feet across the bottom. Shrewsbury 2, we're at 95 feet on a rooftop. 120 feet on a monopole. Way over to the right, Shrewsbury East, 56 feet on a monopole. And then up into the center of the page, there's a church steeple that we're located in at 81 feet. As part of our application package, we submitted what's called an ASA, an alternative site analysis. The real estate consultant for Verizon Wireless has gone out and scrubbed this entire area to determine whether or not there's any place that we could locate this facility. First and foremost, Verizon Wireless's preference is to co-locate on an existing tower, co-locate on something that is a tall structure, anything that we can do, to not have to build a new tower. A question that I think would come up from the board would be, well, there's the power stanchions right next to where it is that you're proposing to locate. If Verizon Wireless could locate on the top of those, and we do have installations on the top of those, we would. We're unable to do that as technology continues to evolve and change. We're installing what I referred to earlier as the RRHs, the remote radio heads, and those get installed up behind the panel antennas. And what that does is it prevents power loss from those antennas and keeps that signal propagating as much as it can, especially for the fourth generation of wireless services, the LTE, long-term evolution. So the reason we can't co-locate up there is that in the event that there's ever any issue with the equipment, and there are issues with the equipment, it could be months in order for Verizon Wireless to be able to schedule with the power company to power down and to be able to get in there and fix that site. You may recall or may know that there is an installation there from AT&T just down the way. It's believed that if this facility is approved, then AT&T would be co-locating on this structure. The other is that on top of that power extension, they put up a small pole, and they're only able to do a limited installation. So they're not able to put their standard installation that's required to be able to provide the services that we were all demanding. So if we look to the other map, you can see and this is computer modeling with all these existing sites, you can see that with the proposed site, there's been a significant improvement, in that service. And in the RF engineer's statement that's part of the application package, they in fact detail that coverage, we improve coverage or close a coverage gap along 290. It's a half mile along 290, 0.7 miles along Main Street, 0.4 miles along Gulf Street. It impacts about 1,200 plus residents within proximity to the site with regards to coverage, and then it lists a whole other long list of streets and street addresses in which coverage would be improved. If we look down to the bottom two documents, we submitted photo simulations along with our package. We went out and had someone fly a balloon from that location, take photographs to show existing what it looks like, and then we superimposed the proposed 100-foot monopole there with Verizon Wireless's installation. I put these 2 pages here because the first one is a drive test / visibility map. You can see in the center there, you can see the red triangle. That's the proposed site. Everything in green are roads that were investigated. Areas in red are locations in which the balloon was visible. Again, I brought hard copies of the photo sims. I think you all had access to review those, but I have some other hard copies if you'd like me to distribute those. The photograph to the right, I think this is 290 westbound where they're stopped and took this picture, and I thought this was a fair representation as to what the monopole looked like, and you can see the wires there from the swath of the electrical poles there. I would just to sum up quickly and then answer any questions that you have. I think, from Verizon Wireless's submission, and if we look more specifically at the RF statement, we've identified clearly identified a significant gap in coverage. With regards to the variance request, as you folks all know, I'm sure, we have the TCA of 1996 Telecommunications Act, and essentially case law says, and that's the leading case is National Tower v. Plainville, that if the applicant is able to demonstrate that it has a significant gap in coverage, that we've investigated all alternatives and that there are no alternatives that are more feasible than the alternative that we've presented, then relief that's justified or required for the board to provide would be that of a variance, because as we know, the tower is not permitted in this location. I said I would keep it to 10 minutes, so with due respect to all these folks behind me.
Yeah, the only question I had, you answered whether other providers would be able to co-locate, which you said yes. Anyone else have any? Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple after Paul.
You mentioned something about propane tanks?
Yes, the proposed emergency backup generator would be run on LP tank.
Is there any way that could be possibly put in the fenced-in area?
It is inside.
It is in the-
It is in the
okay.
fenced-in area, yes.
Just for safety reasons?
Yep, it's in the fenced-in area, and I think they even drew the 10-foot spark radius around there for us. So, agreed and yes. I think an earlier set of plans may have shown that outside, and we added it to the inside.
No?
Yeah, if I remember, the last time we heard this was the AT&T tower, and you commingled on that. And you'll be coming off of that?
No, so AT&T, and I apologize if that was confusing, AT&T is currently located on the top of one of those large electrical stanchion poles.
Yes.
They have what would be, and I'm not here representing AT&T, but it's my understanding that what they have there is a limited installation. Verizon Wireless would only be able to do a limited installation. It would not be able to provide the, upgrade to its 4G LTE services. So I
You're
think
not on that tower now?
No, we are not. No.
Yeah, how many feet away are you from the nearest residence?
Oh, geez, it's a long,
A lot.
yeah,
The scale was like 700-800 feet.
right. I'm not sure they even referenced that anywhere. It's,
Okay. But I mean, you said line of sight, it's all wooded in between the residences and the,
It's about
The
1,000
houses.
feet, Fred.
what's that?
It's about 1,000 feet. It's on
1,000
sheet
feet, okay.
2 on your
Right.
package.
thank you.
Would
I'm
you
all
be
set.
willing to put a repeater antenna on top of this for the fire department, and the police department?
Verizon Wireless, often offers space, agreeable, location and space on that tower at no cost to the jurisdiction. So, yes,
So if that was in the decision,
Yes.
you'd have no problem with it.
no problem.
Are you yet a public utility?
No.
Okay.
We are battling with that with regards to all of our small cell installations on telephone poles and light poles and all those areas. So.
And,
And people argue that we are, so.
well, I'm not gonna get into that argument. I have a feeling about it, but I'm not gonna get into it. What and how does this benefit the town of Shrewsbury, and do we derive any income from it?
First, I would say it does, benefit the town of Shrewsbury, and as part of the alternative, or actually as part of the RF report, it talks specifically about the number of vehicles that pass, in between exit 22 and Gulf Street, which is the most recent data. The most recent data from 2014 was just about 70,000 vehicles. On Main Street alone, in the most recent data for that available was 2001. Services, 12,000 vehicles a day. So I think, first and foremost, the benefit is that we've identified a gap in coverage, and I passed back and forth both directions on 290, with my Verizon Wireless phone, and it drops right when you get to those, electric lines. So first, I would say that it benefits in providing reliable service to, not only residents and businesses, but to public safety folks. And then certainly, I believe that there's going to be an increase in real estate taxes that someone, is going to pay, which would be a financial benefit to the town.
So you'll be paying that?
Correct.
St. John's won't pay it.
Correct. Correct.
All right.
Yes.
I'm all set now.
Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? State your name for the record, please.
Lisa Cosette, 702 Main Street, and I live in a Verizon dead zone. So I don't know if it will help me or not, but I do have a question. I don't know exactly where on the St. John property you were looking to put this, but you mentioned a 6-foot chain link fence, I believe, with some barrier of barbed wire above that. And I would just like the board to keep in mind that St. John's, though they have high school students there, they do run camps, day camps in the summer, and some of those little children, as good as they supervise them, sometimes they get away. So I would just like the board to consider, or just look at that closely to make sure the
This
fencing,
is well to the rear of the property.
it is, okay. And it has an access road, you mentioned?
Yes.
Thanks. What?
If I may, I
Oh, yeah,
apologize.
yep.
So Main Street is here.
Yeah.
Existing into the sports fields, and it comes
All the way
over
behind.
almost 2,000 feet.
Anybody else wish to be heard on this?
Thank you.
No further questions or comments. We'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our first new 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of the Shrewsbury Engineering Department, 100 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance and a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, and Section 4-B to exceed the allowed building height as well as remove and replace the existing non-conforming salt shed building in the Residence A District upon property located at 205 to 211 South Street. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax page 35, Plot 2. Welcome, and state your names for the record.
Good evening. Jeff Holland, Town Engineer, Shrewsbury, and I have John Knight, Highway Superintendent. First, we have submitted a letter that we no longer need the variance for the height.
Okay.
At the time that we had submitted, we weren't sure of the exact height of the salt shed that we are looking at putting up, but it's been determined that the maximum or the peak of the roof is at little over 39 feet, or just under 40 feet. But the wall height's only 12, so the building inspector, it's averages out to about 25 feet, 11 inches. So we are below the required 35-foot height restriction in the Resident A zone. We are here for a special permit in the Residence A zone to put the municipal salt shed, to replace the existing salt shed that is in dire need of replacement. The roof is near failure. We're looking at a significant upgrade to that roof system if we were to maintain the existing roof. However, at this point, it makes more sense to try to look at it putting in a new salt shed with a overhang so that for outdoor storage. The existing salt shed is 96 by 40. The proposed salt shed will be 120 by 60. Which does add a little bit of height to it, which will allow tractor trailers, when they deliver the salt, to be able to unload inside the building. Currently, the trucks, whether they're triaxles or tractor trailers, will have to dump outside, and they have to push the salt into the building. Currently, there also is not enough adequate volume inside the existing salt shed, so John has to store part of his salt outside during the winter under a tarp. Hopefully he doesn't need it, but some winters he does. This will allow us to put most of our salt that we get usually in the end of October-ish. All of it will be inside the salt shed under cover. I do have some pictures of, or I brought some pictures of what the existing salt shed looks like, both front and rear. Actually, front, side, and rear. And then I just brought one copy, pass it down. I also have what this proposed to look like. If anybody's been down Route 20 in Northborough, They have a very similar salt shed that we are looking at, except I believe theirs is 70 feet wide.
There's a 70 by 80, I think, so they're they're smaller than we are.
Yeah.
What type of material is it made out of?
Pressure-treated wood, it's a package board.
The location of this proposed salt shed, what I have in red, this is South Street, existing DPW yard. Existing salt shed sits here. The proposed salt shed will sit on the existing paved area to the north of the existing salt shed, and the existing salt shed would then be torn down. Trying to work it, depending on timing of the construction of the salt shed, that we can tear down the old one, build a new one in its place. If not, we'll have to build a portion of it or build the main portion of the salt shed and then put in the overhang after the other salt shed is down. Which we're trying to get so that it's constructed prior to for shipment around November 1st. The shed itself will sit exactly the same distance back from South Street that it does now, except again it will be further to the north.
Any questions?
No, I'm fine with it.
Does this mean that we'll actually get the salt shed? And a second part of that question, how long have we been talking about making this happen?
Oh, it's been over 10 years, I think, that's what we originally talked about. And if we're in place to do it, we're waiting to see what the final numbers come in. But I believe it's going to happen because I think Dan and myself, we both want to get done before.
So we're close now.
We're close.
We actually have an architect we are working with at this point.
We've got an appropriation at town meeting, which is to study the facility, to look at the old and the new. And then I know we have probably $500,000 to $600,000 set aside in Chapter 90 to fund the project.
I don't have any other questions.
Good. Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Next is to hear the appeal of Bay State All-Star Cheer and Dance LLC, 228 Cherry Street, Shrewsbury, Mass. For a use variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, to operate a cheer and dance place in the Assembly of the Liberty Industrial District upon property located at 545 Hartford Turnpike. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Sheet 48, Plot 32. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, how are you? My name is Stephen Bisno. I'm the co-owner of Bay State All-Stars Cheer and Dance at 220 Cherry Street. I'm here today because I would like to receive a variance to move into a new location at 545 Hartford Turnpike to do the same exact business that we're doing right now and use it for the same exact thing.
Are you on the same site right now, or?
What's that?
You're in the same site currently?
220 Cherry Street, yes.
Yes, you're just moving to a different
Yes, within the park.
location within the park. Okay. Same size, larger,
A little bit smaller.
smaller?
Yep.
Okay.
Are they leasing this space with another tenant in the same building, or are they by themselves?
There's another tenant in the building.
And what type of a tenant is in that building?
Right now, it's not, we don't know who it would be.
Oh, so it's
because
vacant right now?
It's vacant,
Okay.
yes, but there will be another tenant in the building.
Anybody else?
I'm all set.
Anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this one? Okay, there'll be no further questions.
Thank you.
I'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Next is to hear the appeal of Daniel Davis, 194 South Street, Douglas, Mass. For a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Sections 7-B to construct a 12-foot by 11.5-foot deck, 28.5 feet from the rear property line in the Residence B2 district on property located at 22 Glendale Ave. The subject premises on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 7, Plot 4.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a note of record, this was advertised incorrectly. It should be a variance, so this will be re-advertised for your July meeting.
Okay.
So it's therefore postponed this evening, and we have a note
So
on
we
the
don't even have to
agenda.
continue it.
Note
Okay.
as such. Yeah, correct. So we're not even opening it, and we will not have to continue. It'll be a brand-new hearing.
Perfect.
At the July 25th meeting.
Next is 555 Main Street, which I need to recuse myself from.
Your next hearing is in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9. No, I hear the appeal of 555 Main Street, Shrewsbury LLC, 15 Smith Road, Northfield, Mass. For one variance and two special permits to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7-E, Section 4-B, to exceed and allow total sign square footage, as well as remove and replace the existing non-conforming roof, sign, and ground sign. Limited Business District and Residence B1 District upon property located at 555 Main Street.
Of course.
The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessors Tax Plate 22, Plot 20. Just state your names, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney with offices at 11 Maple Avenue, and I'm here representing 555 Main Street, Shrewsbury LLC. With me to my right, to the left is Jeff Hakeem. He is the principal and manager of the LLC. We also have with us tonight John Foraker in the front row behind me. From Unisigns, if you have any questions about the signs themselves. If I could just pass out
Thank you.
handout. It's just a color version, I believe, of what I've already.
It's throwing me aside.
Yep.
The brochures that I just handed you basically depict the signs that we're talking about. Mr. Hakeem has decided, as you well know, there was a bank here twice in this particular facility. Since the bank moved out, the unit that the bank was in has been vacant. His concept is for shared office space, as you can see from the signage. This lot is a fairly sizable lot in the center of Shrewsbury, as you can see. Somewhat of a pork chop lot. And it only has 83.04 feet of frontage. So because it is a sizable lot, as you can see, if it was a rectangle lot, then it would be allowed 223 feet of signage. But because of the amount of frontage that is on the lot itself, it is only specifically allowed under the bylaw 83 square feet of signage. That causes the hardship that we're dealing with. The present signage at the property exceeds that amount. Therefore, this is why we're asking for the special permits in order to allow the alteration of the signage that's there. In addition to the alteration, however, we are looking for alteration of the roof sign to go from the rectangle presently, which rectangle is 24 square feet. We're looking to go up to 32 feet by use of an oval sign. If you look at page 2 of the handout that I've given you, you'll see that if we stayed with the 24-foot rectangular configuration, that sign would be substantially smaller than what we believe is necessary in order to be read from the parking lot and as you enter the parking lot from the street. So that's the reason for that increase. I've worked with the building inspector to figure out that square footage. I'm not a math major, so we came up with the fact that this request is for a 32 square foot sign based on the oval. In addition to that, we're looking, because of the shared office space concept, to be able to put the names of specific tenants on the awnings themselves, on just the lip of the awnings. And that comprises totally 28 square feet. And those awnings would be, this is the building right here, those awnings would be on the front and side portions of the front unit of the building, which is the unit we're talking about for this concept of shared office space. So the total square footage that we would be looking for is basically about a 32-foot increase overall on this property. And the total square footage would be 130 square feet of signage. And that's for all the signs, including the street sign that's out there, and the awning signs, and the oval roof sign. As I suggested to you, respectfully, the shape of the lot poses the hardship that we're dealing with. This request, I would suggest, is in keeping with the bylaw. This is a business in the center of town. I think the signage that you're looking at and these renderings is attractive. It's in keeping with a good quality product and a good quality building that the Hakeems have owned for a long time. Jeff is he's a native of Shrewsbury, and the Hakeems have owned property in the center of Shrewsbury for a long, long time. His mother before him. But this is a building that has been a good, solid building anchoring the center of town for quite some time. Had a couple of banks in it. That's not in the market right now. So basically, this is an attempt to make this a useful and appropriately usable building again. With respect to this request, I would suggest that what we're looking at is a hardship that is incidental only to this particular lot. This is a unique lot in the center of town, being a pork chop lot the way it is. You've got the old Hales Drug, which is Rite Aid, right in front of it. I'm dating myself, I know, Dale. Basically, it is incidental to this particular lot. I would suggest also respectfully that there is to be no harm. This doesn't derogate from the bylaw. This is a business use. This is a business zone. These businesses need signage. This is not going to generate any harm, nuisance, or whatsoever in any way, shape, or fashion. It's in keeping with the center of town properties. So with that, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Richard, did you abandon the sign in the rear entrance of that building?
Yes.
You did abandon that?
There's an awning there which represents the entry to the office lobby.
Talking about this sign.
Oh, yes.
But that's abandoned?
Yes,
chose
that
not to
is.
do that.
Okay.
That's right. That is not part of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We chose
And-
not to do that. I apologize. That shouldn't have been on there.
Right.
And the one on the front roof, is that going to be lit?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
there
so.
are. There have been lights there presently, and it
So
would
are
be
they
expected.
internally or are they spots?
Exterior
Ex-
spots,
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
shining at the sign.
all right. And the awning signs, the names of the businesses, are they going to be easily removed? So if some other person comes in, that just that part of the,
That's the idea, is to design it either as a kind of a placard or something that
It'll be a horizontal panel that'll be constructed of canvas, the same material as the awning. You can just remove that panel as the
And put-
tenants change hands.
okay.
just
Right?
place it
Yeah.
on there, right?
Yeah.
And will there be any lighting on any of those?
No.
No.
No, okay.
However, the site, as you know, is lit.
Right.
In accordance
Yep.
with previous requirements.
Lisa?
The businesses that have to do with medical offices that are still on your street sign,
Yes, they're still there.
do they have any signage on the building itself?
No.
Do they have signage on the door entries or anything?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
they're.
but no awnings?
No.
Okay. And one last question. You mentioned alternatives. One was to, or let me just ask it this way. Did you consider any alternatives, and what were they?
Alternatives to what?
To less square footage needed. You're asking for 130 square feet.
Right.
So, first of all, I think I'd like to answer and to say that for the size of the building and for the amount of tenants that building accommodates, I think that the request overall is very modest, the amount of signage. If this were, as I say, a rectangular lot and a regularly shaped lot, then the amount of signage that would be allowed would be about 223 square feet. We did talk about, and I'll just start the answer and let Jeff finish, but we did talk about the difference between, if you put another rectangular sign up there
Yes, could you
versus
clarify?
versus a oval sign. And it was really the decision by him and others that the oval sign was more attractive for the purposes of what he's trying to accomplish on this lot. So,
Shall I
with
add
that-
to that? Yeah, so, you know,
If you have anything to add, yep.
you know, I think the oval sign to us was a more current look. We want to make it look, you know, noticeable but very understated. Give it a bit of roundness versus, you know, the angles that are on the building now. We wanted it to be softer and more tasteful and, you know, that kind of thing.
He's been hanging around California for a while.
Well,
so, this is,
you know, I think a lot of this is perception and how people feel within a space, and I think it's important to show it very well. That is my view. Relative to the awnings, it's very clear to us, because the tenants have said this, that they want representation somehow in a tasteful way to show up on the building. And this to us looked like the right way to do it. So we don't want to try a different version. I think this is the right way to go, and so that's why we arrived at this. All right?
and it does. I mean, it is nicer than a ladder sign.
Right, your street sign is basically that, and
And the
you
street
have,
sign is not
you
changing.
have the potential of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It's a large
Businesses
space that
are-
they're trying to fill here.
Yep.
So you're basically going from 83 square feet allowed to 130 square feet.
Right, but we're going from an existing, just under 100 feet to the 130,
Which is, okay.
which is why the special permit. It's an alteration, enlargement of the previously allowed non-conforming use.
The last reason for the oval sign and its size was that if it's smaller, it doesn't fully cover the existing frame. And these are expensive projects, signage is expensive, frames are expensive, so we wanted to make it large enough to cover the existing frame. Okay.
Any other questions?
I think that you're really only increasing the signage on the now would-be oval sign by 8 feet.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You can't tell, and it looks much better than a rectangular sign.
yeah.
The awning signs, it's another, what, 30-ish feet there?
28,
Yeah. And then you're making the road sign smaller.
right.
I think it's a dramatic improvement. I don't have any problems with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The reason for the variance is because of the overall amount.
Total, yeah.
The overall total. It's a belt and suspenders approach. After talking with the building inspector, we felt that was the best approach to
Yeah, you know,
go
it's,
at this.
I think it's something similar we did down in White City with those
yeah.
those plaques.
Plaques, yeah. It helps you see who's there.
Yeah.
It really does.
The tenants want that.
Yeah, and it's really a real improvement, I think.
Tenants really need visibility. They need something to identify that they're going to be there, so.
Any other questions from the board?
Let me.
Anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll take it under advisement and notify you of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you shortly, Lisa.
Okay, do you wanna vote on things now and then?
Are you sticking around?
I mean, how long do you think it's going to be? A shot like the last one, I'll stick around.
I hope so.
So, no, I'll stick.
Lisa, welcome back.
Attorney can't get enough of you.
Thank you. We're gonna deliberate.
Our next hearing is continued from December 14th, December 29th, January 25th, February 29th, March 21st, March 28th, April 11th, May 9th, and May 31st, 44526 Hartford Turnpike, Smart Growth Design LLC, comprehensive permit to construct a, says 280, but it's now a 248 multi-family apartment community. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kristen.
doesn't take other people's flash drives.
Really?
No, it's for virus control.
But there must be a way to give it permission, isn't there?
Mr. Chairman. It seems that the usual technical difficulties have been following us through the last several months, and again this evening. Apologize for that. I'd like to start off by saying that my name is Fran Zaretti, for the record, Smart Growth Design LLC, the applicant for the proposed development, the Pointed Hills Farm, number 20, Shrewsbury. With me tonight is Wayne Bellick, Waterman Design, our site designers, Tom Parise, AECom, working on the sewer. Bob Engler is here this evening from SEB LLC, our 40B consultant. And with me at my right is Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Group, Chapter 40B attorney, real estate law. We're getting to the end of the project where we're making transition now from the technical end with the engineers and architects to more of the 40B consultants and the attorneys to work out the agreements that will be forthcoming in the next month or two. So this evening we're going to try to discuss the sanitary sewer update on the revised report, the existing capacity that we've been talking about for the last several meetings regarding Weston Sampson and AECom are working together on the technical issues regarding the capacity situation. And also after that, Wayne will be doing a discussion on the site plan, which we haven't been addressing in the last couple of meetings because of the other issues, and go through what's involved through the hearing process on the site plan and changes made and how the plans were revised to address those changes. At this point, I'll turn it over to Tom Parise. He can discuss where we are with the sanitary sewers. If his presentation is not available graphically, he can obviously discuss what the findings were and what the reports say verbally equally as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Fran said, over the last couple of months, we've been back and forth with the town and their consultant, Weston & Sampson, hashing out the last of the technical issues with the wastewater, and ultimately we're there. We've talked about a couple of these items before, but I'm going to summarize it. That obviously we've talked about how we develop the flows for the proposed development, additional information that has been obtained to supplement the existing town records, everything from topographic surveys to wet well drawdown tests, some infiltration inflow analysis, et cetera. We also, based on the last couple of meetings we had with technical workshops with Weston & Sampson and the town, agreed to do what we call a pre- and post-development design of the 3 pump stations, and also use that pre- and post design of the development in order to look at the capacity of the pipelines from the development all the way into the interceptor. And from that, what it comes down to, I guess, are a couple of different things. Is one is in the collection system, there are 4 line segments that are over capacity now, pre-development. There are 11 post-development, but of those 11, 4 are obviously the ones that exist already. There are also 4 other ones that are just slightly over capacity. And what I mean by that, I think there's one of them, one stretch is like only over by about 4,000 gallons per day, and that's based on the 80% capacity. So if you change that to like 81%, that would disappear. So it's very close on those items. Relative to the pump stations, there are the 3 pump stations are either at or approaching capacity as they currently exist today. There has been some operational issues that the town has addressed some of those items, and probably some others that are going on. The most notable one is probably the rag problem that's at Cherry Street that exists. And then obviously with the post-development, it puts it over capacity for those 3 pump stations. So simplifying that, I guess what it comes down to is that there are various pipelines that need to be increased in pipe size. That is going from an 8-inch to a 10-inch, or a 10 to a 12. Throughout those lines, the preliminary design needs to be confirmed, and obviously then the pump station's upgraded. So we had some great discussions back and forth. So from the technical end, we've now agreed on where those pieces are and where the concerns are. And in the future, the fine tuning of that would be to make sure that that the preliminary design we've done is adequate for the town's current and post needs. So with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And I know Hillary's is in the background here, what have you, and we've been back and forth even as early as this afternoon having discussions. So I think we're all in agreement from the technical end. So we can now move on. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd allow our peer review consultant if you wish.
Yep. Go ahead.
Hillary Lacanola from Weston and Sampson Engineers. Yeah, I agree with Tom. We've had a lot of discussions over the past several months about the technical overarching issues, and seem to come to an agreement with respect to the pipelines that need to be increased in capacity in order to accommodate the development, and also the upgrades needed for the pump stations. And it's really just a matter of fine-tuning things and working out minute details and things like that. But overall, we generally agree. We have a draft, we've looked at a draft report, but we don't have a final. So I would say that we need a final report that we can then issue final comments on. Hopefully they would be mostly, that we concur and that we accept everything, rather than the back and forth that has happened over the minor details
So
over the past couple weeks.
Okay, so you've seen the draft report?
I've seen the draft report, yes.
Okay. And you're somewhat in agreement with what the issues are?
Mostly pending the final report.
Right, depending on what changes
Yes.
between the draft and the final.
Yeah, Weston Sampson provided some of the comments on the draft. I've actually completed the draft, or the final this afternoon, but I was waiting obviously for the hearing in case anything else came out of it to finalize it. So I can get that back off to Fran and to Weston Sampson tomorrow, as early as tomorrow.
Okay, okay. And then how much time will you need subsequent to receiving it? To review it and give us your final report?
Presuming no major changes.
Yes,
presuming that there's no major changes, we can turn it around relatively quickly. We've looked at it in pretty great detail already, so rather quickly,
Okay.
without committing to any.
Right. So theoretically, we could maybe nail this down for our next meeting. Okay. Mr. Hill.
Just a quick question. The way this was sort of left off back in early May is that there seemed to be, Weston and Sampson seemed to have some disagreements over methodology that they were employing, and also some lack of some data collection that needed to happen, not so much identifying the mitigation. So is what you're saying is that you're satisfied with the way they're characterizing the problem as well as the data that's been collected? So there's no need to collect more data or to reevaluate any of the capacity issues at this point?
There is no need to reevaluate any capacity issues at this point. The upgrade of the pump stations will require a much more specific process of evaluation and then design, and when that happens, I'm not sure where in the process all that will be, but the overarching technical concepts have been agreed upon.
Okay. So the issues then, at that point, would be mitigation, I presume. Okay. Moving along.
With this, any other questions regarding sewer before Tom finishes his?
Anyone up here? Go ahead,
No.
Mel.
Sounds like it's, oh, I'm sorry,
The,
no.
the lines behind Price Chopper, are those anchored or do they float?
I'm sorry, repeat that, the one behind Price Chopper?
Yeah, the ones behind Price Chopper. Are they anchored or do they float?
Anchored or float, is what you said?
Yeah. Well, have you dug under the earth, under the water, and anchored it? Or is it just lying on the bottom?
Oh, how was it originally installed?
I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you that, whether it was, I'm assuming it was obviously, excavated. There may have been some sheeting that was put in order to get down to that elevation, some dewatering, and then it's placed on the natural material that was there.
Okay.
The surveys do show it's flowing downhill with the invert,
That
so
is true.
it is working in that sense.
Yeah, but wasn't there a problem because of the angles? They were so slight.
That was the slope of the pipe was slight, yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Has that been,
That will be rectified by putting a larger diameter pipe at the same slope.
okay.
Go ahead, please.
So, the report that you've drafted, that we're going to have peer reviewed and look at for the next meeting, will identify pre-development issues and post-development issues. Will the report also include a proposal to address the post-development issues?
Yeah, it
includes all that?
recommends a particular pipeline,
Okay.
that if it's over capacity now, it may have to go from an 8 to a 10, or a post-development may have to go from an 8 to a 12. So those discussions are in there.
Okay, and you're identifying which ones have nothing to do with this development and are already at capacity or near
Right,
capacity?
that's the pre-development, lists out those segments, correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's my only question is, you committed to doing this work, right? Once this final design is, the town doesn't have any responsibility for these modifications?
Well, we're not at that point yet.
Okay.
The exercise tonight was to finally agree on agreeing to the problem.
Right.
Now we know we're all on the same page where the problem areas are. We now can develop solutions which are fairly straightforward engineering-wise, and then it comes who pays for what and what capacity is what and pre and post. That will be further venue in negotiations. But the main thing tonight, which is a major milestone, is to agree on where the problems are concurrently, and then work out solutions, and then work out the cost effectiveness of the solutions. And that will take place.
Do you have anything? Anybody in attendance? State your name for the record, please.
Scott Payne, 170 Stony Hill Road. So I'm a layman to sewer problems here, but what I'm hearing is you guys are finally identifying where the issues are, but solutions are really what has to be found. And so as part of the permitting process, will the fact that any solution is viable and all those details have to be worked out, or?
Well, they will somehow have to come to an agreement on what the mitigation will be. They're going to.
So the solutions
Right.
will be in.
Will be in the report.
Will be in the report. What needs to be figured out after that is who's responsible for doing them and when it's responsible for being done.
But all that gets decided.
That's all going to have to be part of this process, once the board issues a decision.
State your name for the record.
Peter Riley. I guess I'm just a little bit confused. I thought the whole purpose of going through this open process was to share this information so that not only does the applicant and the town have a say and be able to contribute to the dialogue, but that everybody has an opportunity. I'm getting a feel that here in the last 2 months that there's been a whole bunch of discussion going back and forth between the applicant and the town, and I'm glad to see that these reports are coming up and that we have a peer reviewer who's certainly looking at it from the benefit of the town. But for those of us that have been here just along with everyone else, I have nothing to comment on because I have no data, no information.
which we don't have either until our peer reviewer gets your report.
Which is exactly my point, and my understanding is this may be the last potential,
No.
not the last
No.
meeting. So we will have an opportunity.
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
I saw another hand somewhere.
No, that was my question.
Okay. Anybody else?
For one.
What's that?
It's a 2 for 1.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, anybody up here want to revisit sewer? What other issues?
They were going to do a presentation on overall site design changes and stormwater changes. We received a package this afternoon with revised site plans and revised stormwater calculations, as well as a comment letter of what has been updated. So we'll have to be asking our peer review consultant to review that as well. But I think the team has a short presentation on those changes for the board and the public this evening.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Wayne Bellick, Waterman Design. Before we begin, as Kristen had indicated, there's a little summary that I've prepared for the board to follow. And I'd also like to admit into the record the requested CD that contains the stormwater report and revised site plans. Before I get into the presentation, I just wanted to explain a little bit the delay in getting the site plans. As we know, the project has morphed over several months. In knowing, that traffic was a bone of contention for a while, and not knowing exactly how things were going to play out with that. Once we got direction there, we were able to finalize the site plans. We had also prepared the site plans as originally submitted to the ZBA. The site plans met the criteria of a 40B submission, which is not heavily detailed with site details. It's conceptual in nature, but as your counselor and as Graves Engineering had pointed out, the site plans that were presented to the town contained a little bit more information than the typical 40B application. With that said, we will be filing an application with the Conservation Commission this week for a notice of intent. At that level, you really look at when required under the state regulations to provide in-depth stormwater calculations. The calculations that were submitted as part of this submission package dealt with hydrology. This submission package that's going before the Concom not only deals with hydrology, but hydrology. It also looks at TSS removal rates in sizing of riprap aprons and plunge pools. So it's a bit more extensive, and what you're going to see as I make my presentation, my brief presentation of the plans, is that the detail on the plans is much greater than what you saw in your previous set of drawings. So with that, I'd like to proceed with the presentation. I'd like to start with phase one. So basically what we're looking at is I have the two plans here. I have the plan set that was submitted in November of last year, and then to the right I have the set of plans that was submitted today. As you can see, like I said, the plans seem a little bit more detailed with those that were submitted today as opposed to those that were submitted last September, and they reflect the changes as discussed with the board throughout the process. So in the plan set that you folks have, the half sizes that were presented to you folks today, you'll note that in one of the first things, one of the questions that was raised was showing, and it's minor, but showing the units, houses within 200 feet of the site. We provided that on one of the very first sheets there. Then we get into, we eliminated sheet 01, which was the lotting plan. That particular plan was necessary to show what we were proposing for land taking from MassDOT onto the property. Particularly, it was along this area in here. We were looking at that for road improvements, but since we've modified that design, it's no longer necessary. As you know, during the process, we had eliminated all dimensional waivers to the plans, so all setbacks have been complied with. Right in, right out vehicle maneuvers from the site are only from Route 20 and not over at Stony Hill Road as discussed. We have taken the 24-foot wide previous access to Stony Hill Road and converted it to an 18-foot wide emergency vehicle access. This is for purposes if something obstructs vehicular movement at this location, the residents could come out here or come in here. It also allows for fire apparatus to make its way in and out of the site at that location as well. Toward the top of the hill, there's going to be a swing gate, a tubular steel swing gate. We have taken, in fact, it was, I'd like to credit Lisa for some of what we have done here. She had raised a couple hearings ago comments about this parking area in here. And she'd also commented that, actually it's on this plan over in here, and how sharp this angle was in here, which pushed the site access drive closer to the property line. As I said at the last hearing, we softened the curve in here and eliminated this bay of parking, actually relocated it to this area in here, further away from the abutters. We have also introduced seat walls within the site along the back sides of these buildings. They're 22-inch high, and what that does is that is at the toe slope of the common area, which allows for pedestrians in the development to have a seat as they work their way through the site. The parking density on site was increased to accommodate additional visitor parking. What we had done on this site as well as Phase 2 is we've increased it by 10%. Again, the majority of that is located in this area here, having heard the concerns with proximity to the property line. Unlike the previous plans, let me back up there. So from this plan to this one here, obviously we know that we've decreased the density from 180 units in 5 buildings to 158 units in 4 buildings, creating a bit more green space between the paved surfaces and Stony Hill Road. We had provided snow storage areas throughout the site. Those are pretty much along the site access drives and back parking areas as well. Typically, the towns require 5–10%. This particular site, we're provided 16% of snow storage. Flip to the grading and drainage plan. Again, we're still on Phase 1. Obviously, we regraded the site to accommodate the new improvements. We did, as we were working our way through the site, in pulling everything in tighter away from the property lines, it limited the ability to site infiltration basins in these areas here, which we had previously cited in here, so we needed to accommodate those increases in stormwater runoff. And to do that, what we've done is we've gone to an open drainage system in here. You folks may recall at one of the previous hearings I talked about taking Route 20 stormwater runoff and dedicating an area to address that. We want to keep those impoundment areas, if you will, separate from one another for maintenance purposes. So basically what we've done is we've taken the Route 20 runoff that comes down here, routed through this area here, which eventually comes down through the site to a plunge pool in this location here. Localized runoff that's collected on site is captured in infiltration basins in the site access driveways and within this basin here. That particular basin, when it discharges again down to this plunge pool before making its way, both of these systems making its way down below through the wetland into a storm drain drop inlet that we're proposing here, discharging onto the property at number 424. We, in accordance with the state regulations, the stormwater regulations, as I said earlier, the detail on these plans is a bit more extensive than the previous submittal. What we have done is we've We've sized the riprap aprons accordingly in accordance with the state requirements. We have taken the plunge pools in these areas as well, sized those accordingly. We have taken this area here where we propose our drop inlet, detailed that design a bit by taking the area and creating a depression around the drop inlet so that we can ensure that stormwater runoff does get collected here. As we ran the numbers in the hydraulics within that pipe, we wanted to make sure that the water did make its way across the road without overflowing again and creating the icing problem that has been there. We had, again, one of the comments from Graves Engineering was to add the pipe labels to the plans. Not only did we add the pipe labels to the plans, but once you folks open up your plan sets, you're going to see schedules of elevations for all the drainage, all the sewer that shows the slopes, the types, diameters, the whole shoot match, and inverts of the up and downstream structures. In terms of the, before I go on, I just wanted to point out, with the creation of this emergency vehicle access and elimination of the 24-foot pavement, we also have taken another one of Lisa's comments, which was if we were to go with this alignment here, she had asked that we take, if this drive was still in play, that we try to pull it up to Route 20. I don't know if you remember that discussion. Okay. So what we had done is, as we looked at it, we said, you know what? Even though we're not doing the 24-foot driveway out there, and it's still an emergency vehicle access, there was still some merit in still pulling it up to Route 20. You'll see as I get into the landscape plans, but one of the benefits here is, if you look on this plane here, this retaining wall ran the entire length in here, up through here, and then we picked up another retaining wall in here. By making these site designs, we've eliminated this entire wall. That was a good-sized wall. That was 10 to 12 feet through here. We've eliminated that so that it begins at about a 4-foot wall. I think it goes up to about a 6 or 8 in that location here. Up through here again, we've eliminated the retaining wall. We do have a little bit of a retaining wall in here and along here. Again, keeping in mind that we did pull this area away from the abutting properties. The grading scheme on those plans, by the way, pretty similar to that of the original submittal. Not much to talk about here with respect to the utilities. I think the big thing was Fire Chief had asked that we provide a hydrant in this area here, so when we proposed one up here. The other thing that he had suggested was that we take our water system and we loop the system in this area. Meeting with town staff, it was your town engineer who just suggested that rather than take our water system and loop it, come out into Stony Hill Road up to this location here and loop it through Stony Hill Road, he suggested that perhaps we just keep it within the site and conduct it right here. What that does is that doesn't disrupt the vehicle maneuvers out on Stony Hill Road. That was basically it for that phase. Landscaping, and I think this is where we're going to see the biggest difference from the existing, from the previous plan to the current plan. So what we have done is, if you note, the darker, what appears to be the heaviest circles in here, what that represents are evergreen trees. Those are going to be your blue spruces, your white pines, your hemlocks, your Norway spruces. Those are these trees in here. The other trees are your Zelkovas, your little leaf lindens, which are going to be within the site. But what you'll notice between the two plants first, with the building here on the November plans, we cited landscaping along this area here. All you had, in this case here, along here, was a single buffer line. Okay? Keeping in mind that topography is coming up. So what we have proposed as we looked at this, before I get into that, I want to go back to what I said about Lisa's drive over in here. Again, looking at the serpentine, slightly serpentine alignment here, as you're driving up to the site through this area here, and you look into the site, note the location of the building, and note the location of the evergreen. So as you're coming up through here, we made quite an effort in trying to create a little bit of a barrier, a physical barrier between the street and this area here. What you're going to get along here, these are pretty much at grade. So these trees are going to be planted probably about 2 feet or so higher than the back of sidewalk elevation. You're going to come into the site, there's going to be a little bit of berm, then it's going to drop down into the detention basin. This is important because it creates a topographic barrier which allows for the trees to gain a little bit of height in this area. So what you do is as you drive up into the site, if we were to just position a single row up in here, you would get a visual barrier to the buildings eventually when these mature. But right here you have an instant barrier. Because at the back of sidewalk, at planting, if they're 15 feet high, you're sitting in your car 3.5 feet off the ground, you look to the right, you're seeing greenery. So that was the intent of creating the double row, the lower row and the upper row of evergreens. What we did, as you see in the previous design, we had a number of deciduous trees along this area here. As you see behind the garage in here, we've taken this garage, by the way, we shifted it over to here as part of the waiver-free approach. And in doing so, what that allowed us to do is we're grading in this area here, and we have minor grading. And what we had decided to do was plant that with evergreens, being sensitive to the abutters. I did take a ride out there, and there was a meeting where Mr. Hill and the abutters had commented about vegetation being deciduous. And based on what we saw on the aerial maps, it indicated that I wanted to see it myself. I did go out there at various times of the year, but I did take a good look this summer. And he's right, and as so are they, that, you know, as you look in this area here, it's predominantly deciduous. But what we have in these areas here are stands of evergreens. So what we're looking to do, very mature evergreens, so what we're looking to do is complement those by beefing up the evergreen barrier in this location in here. So again, where it was fairly open with deciduous, we're going to beef up that border in there. Same thing with the basin, backside of the basin. Now we're proposing the evergreens to shore up that screening. That's pretty much it for phase 1. I'd like to flip to phase 2. Sorry for taking so long.
Much better than that than the other presentation.
Good, thank you. Phase 2. So the comments between phase 1 and phase 2 are pretty much the same. We did eliminate the waivers, if you folks recall. This was in the 50-foot setback, complied with the underlying district, but not with the complied with the overlay district, but not the underlying district. So we pulled this building back in here, reconfigured it, and in doing so, we also eliminated the fourth story. Vehicle maneuvers, again, purely from Route 20. Again, like the phase 1, there's an emergency vehicle access in this location here with a tubular scale swing gate up in here. One of the comments from Graves Engineering was that they were concerned about the longitudinal slope of, actually it was this driveway in here. And what we had done is we'd done a couple things in here. We figured that in order to get the slope to work and be a little bit more gentle in this area, even though, again, it is an emergency vehicle access, we eliminated a few spaces in here, relocated it to the parking area, which caused us to add a few spaces within the inside bays of the parking area. But again, made for additional space in here, which you'll see on the landscape plans that we were able to vegetate with evergreens. We did, again, as with phase 1, increase our parking density by 10% to provide for additional vehicle visitor parking on site. As you are aware, this unit density had gone from 100 units in this auction to the final at 92. We, like with phase one, we did provide for, on the plans, we showed detention basin access drives. Where we access these drives on both sites are fairly flat in topography. We work our way around the berm. The berm is about 10 foot wide. The travel path is about 8 to 10 foot wide, which is ideal for a backhoe to support the access of the drainage apparatus. So, again, we regraded the site to accommodate the new improvements. Not much has changed in terms of the grading from here to here, with the exception of those improvements associated with the 2 building configuration versus the 3. There was some minor regrading down in here because we did advance the parking area to relocate the spaces that were in this area over there. One of the comments that Graves Engineering had made on this particular basin here was that we are proposing a vertical wall in that area. The reason we're doing that, we could have graded the wall, graded the area out, but in doing so, we would come really close to or impacted the wetlands. So in lieu of doing that, what we have proposed is a vertical concrete wall, a couple feet high, 1.5 to 2 feet high, unlike the typical detention basin. One of the concerns that Graves had made, and we're all over it as soon as they brought it up, was that if a critter gets in this basin, how is he to get out, or she to get out? So what we propose in this area is we created a critter ramp, so that as they work their way around, they find the ramp and they work their way out. Again, the riprap aprons and plunge pools were proposed at the outlets of the drainage structures and size in accordance with state regulations. I didn't mention this in phase one, but again, when we show the erosion sediment control barriers on the initial submittal, conceptual in nature, now that we're into the nuts and bolts of this thing, whenever erosion sediment control barriers are proposed within 50 feet of a resource area, wetlands down in this area here, we need to double up the hay bale rows, and that's what we have done in this particular case. Before I move on, we had, as you folks know, we had received an ANRAD, an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation from the Conservation Commission for phase one. We proceeded with this design based on previous permitting. I was involved in the previous permitting on this site for the sewer as it comes through the site. I worked with Liberty Church across the street and Mr. St. Pierre to cite an easement in this area here in the sewer infrastructure. That project was back in 2008. With the Permit Extension Act, we were able to extend the order of conditions for several years. Mr. St. Pierre received a certificate of compliance from the Concom last year. So we were proceeding on the basis that the wetland delineation was still valid. As we got into our design, it appears that delineation had expired. So what we had done is we had gone out, run an independent delineation of that line. We could have surveyed the flags back in, but wetlands morph. So what we had done is we had gone out here, saw that the wetlands delineation did change slightly. In this particular area here, the wetland line had creeped down a little bit. However, back in this area here, where we're not proposing any retaining walls before, we are proposing a retaining wall in this area here because the wetland system is creeped up where we're proposing riprap. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, we're allowed to fill up to 500,000. Sorry, 5,000. Oh, what a Freudian slip. Commission love.
Wouldn't you love that, huh?
Boy, yeah. And Commission's looking forward to meeting with me now. But in any event, we're at the discretion of the Conservation Commission, we're allowed to fill up to 5,000 square feet. We could have filled in here, would have saved money, but we said no, we're going to put in the retaining wall. So we have proposed a retaining wall, like I said, in this area here. With respect to grading, we did add pipe labels again. I guess that's a stood set, and all that information. So with respect to sewer, grades engineering, again, keep in mind where we have the riprap through here. The existing sewer easement comes through here, actually, comes through here, here, and out through here. The original, so the sewer is currently located under our riprap. It's going to be from the roadway grade about 20 feet down from the riprap, from the finished grade. So because of that, that particular sewer, that leg of sewer is private sewer. It does come under Route 20, Liberty Church. That sewer infrastructure, as I said, on this plan was coming through here, down here, and out. What we have done is we've realigned the sewer. So at this point here, we've picked up the sewer, rerouted it, and kept it within the driveway. And then we took it back into here and then rerouted it back into Stony Hill Road. So that in terms of utilities along with water, fire chief had asked that we provide a fire hydrant here. We only had one here originally, but now we have one on either end to serve each building independently. Let's see, transformer pad. One of the other comments that Graves Engineering had was in this area here. Now, transformer pads, when you see them, the old transformer pads, they're about that big. Well, now with the new requirements, you have to build a landing strip to install these things. So now, we've taken that transformer pad, and because of the impact of the slope and the vegetation there, we have taken that and moved it up into the site. So it doesn't, come into this flat area up in here. Yep, that was it. Landscaping. So again, like the previous phase, we concentrated the evergreens to the perimeter of the site, moving, more of the deciduous to the inside of the site. So as you can see, again, I went out along this road yesterday morning. If anyone heard Morning with the Beatles on ZLX, it was me going through there. It was low, but I was still driving through there, listening to them. And in this area here, I looked up and through here, and as you can see by this symbol in here, that it is primarily deciduous. So seeing that, again, note the single row of evergreens in here. What we had done is we had beefed that up pretty good in here. So again, this stays deciduous, obviously, but we have beefed up the evergreens. Note in topography, it does come up a little bit. We beefed it up in this area here. Again, as part of our realignment of the site, in this area here, we were able to, and eliminating the parking spaces, we were able to enhance that vegetation in that location. We've done the same thing here. As you see on this plan, didn't really offer much in terms of vegetation, but we've done that in here for those residents located here, looking up through the buildings. That is pretty much it for both phases.
Okay. Mr. Hill?
I have actually some questions on the phase one plan, right? Wayne, can I?
Go not stand. Turn them around. Yep. You wish I had PowerPoint, don't you?
So I might have missed this point, but on the old plan, you had a building in this location, and you were integrating. On this plan, you've got basically two basins here where the building is.
Yep.
Why do you need two more basins with a project that has less impervious area? Are you doing less than integration?
No. So, Mr. Chairman, as I indicated earlier, what happened between the two designs, you can see in this one here, there's quite a gap between the buildings. The buildings, in order to meet the setback requirements, and now because of the configuration of the buildings, as you recall, Cube 3, in eliminating that building, had put a little dogleg on these buildings back in here. So to maintain separation between the buildings without cramping it too tight, we sited them in those locations. Unfortunately, what that resulted in was no ability to site infiltration systems in these areas. So in order to attenuate those flows and to infiltrate, we needed to relocate them over in here. Again, what we wanted to do, and MassDOT's on board with it, is to keep the stormwater system separate. So in order to do that, it made perfect sense that we would create an easement up in here for the benefit of MassDOT in their system. The easement would run down to here. And this particular system here would be specific to this Phase 1 development.
All right, well, I guess more of a comment on the question. I think it's a shame that we're not infiltrating in here. I'm not sure if I understand really why this design was necessary against this design for setbacks. And now they have basically all this area which could have been used for other purposes, perhaps as parking, and they want to move this back. I mean, the fundamental goal, I think, from my client's perspective, is keeping this project as far away as possible so that you have a transition from the high-density uses here to the very low-density uses in the neighborhood, which is really all this area back here. It was our hope that with the shrinking of the density of this project that we'd be able to push this back towards Route 20. Instead, we've got twice as much drainage basins as we had before. I think there should be a creative opportunity here to think about how to infiltrate this water throughout the site rather than dumping it all in a concentrated area, which really is the antithesis of low-impact development. I mean, low-impact development under today's principles would have you infiltrate your stormwater all over the place with Cultec units and perhaps infiltration in Cultec units within the parking areas. I mean, maybe Wayne's thought about that and it's not feasible, but it seems what we'd like to see is this moved back further. I have proposed a 50-foot vegetative buffer, which would be more consistent with this kind of transition theory that DHD wants to see with respect to moving high density to medium density to low density and having at least some kind of buffer here and getting this driveway and buildings pushed back further.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, could I just respond to that? And as Mr. Hill had indicated, yes, we did think about that. And again, looking at, there are a number of criteria when citing these systems. One of the criteria is groundwater. So we need to maintain, in order to have an infiltration system, 2 feet offset to groundwater. By the time you put in these systems, it basically comes down to volume. So the smaller the horizontal footprint, the deeper the vertical footprint. So because the horizontal footprint has shrunk in this area, in here, and we were limited by groundwater, it caused the system to go up. Now, because the system goes up, and there's a grade differential from this side of the site to this side of the site, a natural gradation across the site which flows this way down to the existing area, it would have caused breakout along this side slope in here. So we really couldn't look at that. So what we had done is, again, looking at this area in here as green space. Ideally, I am on public record as stating that what I wanted to do, and feel free to look at the recording, ideally what I wanted to do is there's a swale over in this area here that all I wanted to do is just create a berm across it and keep the vegetation. Unfortunately, because of the volume of runoff that gets down to that area off of Route 20, I wasn't able to do that. So what I've done is, like I said, in the landscaping plan, that whole area is going to be green, and it is going to be vegetated down low and up above. With respect to Mr. Hill's comments about parking, and citing parking in this area, I suppose we could do that. But again, what that does is that eliminates some of that green space, and what it does is it causes the residents of these 2 buildings, rather than accessing their buildings from these parking spaces in here, they would be forced to park in this area here, work their way up through the site to their units. So it didn't really make sense. I do appreciate the suggestion.
Well, just in rebuttal, I think you might lose green space here, but you're going to gain it back here. And balancing the equities here, I think it's more fair to the neighbors to have more green space here, where they're getting a project that doesn't comply with zoning.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just one more point. I will note that off in this area here, at the pinch point, you'll notice that's 24-foot wide minimum width of an access drive. So we needed to create, because we no longer have, especially because we no longer have free access and egress out to Stony Hill Road, it's critical now that we maintain a circular loop throughout the site. So that 24-foot pinch point right there, we need to maintain that. So that in part also dictates what's happening in here. As I said, based on one of Lisa's comments, this particular plan here, which shows a very tight and sharp to the property line, I've been able to soften that. And again, I do appreciate Mr. Hill's comments in providing additional buffer along the property line. I think we're fairly effective with that by eliminating or relocating these parking spaces off to this area.
Can I ask, why is it necessary to handle or manage stormwater runoff from Route 20 on this site? Is there some obligation that this project has to handle Route 20 runoff?
Unfortunately, with many properties throughout the Commonwealth, and I'm sure throughout many other states, handle their state's runoff from state roads. In this particular case, state runoff was coming in from the state road. And yes, we needed to attenuate that because we're making improvements out here as part of our widening for the deceleration lane to access the site. So because we're increasing the amount of runoff within Route 20, one of the requirements of MassDOT is that if you do any work in their roads, you don't discharge into their roads. So in this particular case, we've increased the impervious area. Like on private properties, we needed to attenuate that.
Another stormwater question we had was, what's being proposed is eventually all of this runoff from here and here is going to go through a culvert underneath Stony Hill and end up basically in this area here where they have a drainage easement to 7,000 square foot area. Has there been any peer review of the capacity of this site to handle this additional runoff, hydraulic-wise?
So, again, the site plans of the revised design were just received this afternoon. It will go out for peer review. Because that area is a wetland resource area, that's more applicable for the Conservation Commission review than the Zoning Board of Appeals review.
Except that we have a stormwater bylaw, which this board is stepping into the shoes.
No, we don't.
There's no stormwater
The
bylaw?
town engineer can answer that question. He's in attendance.
We do not have regulations, stormwater regulations. We do have a stormwater bylaw without a regulation.
Right, but you have a bylaw, and this board steps into the shoes of the...
No, because the bylaw is associated with any property with MS4, which this does not.
Okay. All right. In any event, I think this should be evaluated as part of this process and not just passing the buck to the Concom. And it sounds like that's going to happen anyway. With respect to the trees that you showed on the landscaping plan,
Last sheet, Dan?
yeah.
Yep.
Are these? Is this diameter of the circle? Is that the canopy of the tree, or is that what does that represent?
That represents yeah, so I guess if in terms of the evergreen, it would be to the drip edge.
And that is a mature tree after like 20 years, or is that as installed, or what?
That particular, it's interesting you asked that question, because if you look at the diameter of those trees, now I think it's, as we know, your blue spruces and those varieties tend to get to like 50, 60 feet tall. Likewise, their base tends to have a spread that's pretty significant, 30 feet. So as I looked at this, and I failed to ask the landscape architect in the office, but if you look at the scale of this plan at 40 feet, that's telling me that the spread on the base of this is 20 feet. To answer your question here, Dan, I think this is a representation that we're looking to enhance the vegetation. The actual spread width you may be seeing something that's about 2/3 the spread width on the tree.
Okay, so this is showing that it's depicting about a 20-foot spread width, and that's not something you're going to get when you plant it. So that's as it grows.
That's correct.
I'm sure.
That's correct.
Wayne mentioned the delineation, the wetland delineation on phase 2 had expired. Do you have a new ORAD for that, or is that you're going to?
No, that's a good question, Dan. So what we're going to do, Mr. Chairman, is we're going to, as part of our NOI filing, like I said, which is going in this week, as part of the work we're proposing is we're going to request of the commission that they review the wetland delineation as well.
And then phase 1, is that delineation already approved under a separate ORAD?
Yes,
And that hasn't expired?
that's correct. That was just issued last year, yeah, by the end of, I think in last summer.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else wish to be heard on design? State your name for the record.
Scott Payne, So, if I understand the proposals on both sites now, we're getting retention basins to collect all this stormwater runoff. Like, how do those not turn into mosquito magnets? I mean, mosquitoes are bad enough in Massachusetts as it is, but are we going to end up with these standing pools of water that are just basically a breeding ground for mosquitoes? How does that work?
I'm glad, Mr. Payne, you asked that question. Under the state stormwater regulations, they're only allowed to hold water up to 72 hours. So the way these things work is during the least frequent modeled event, which would be the 100-year storm event, it surcharges and peaks at about 12, and it's a 24-hour duration. So it peaks at about 12 and a half hours, and then recedes. In the stormwater report, you will see a drawdown calculation for each of these basins, showing that it does meet that criteria, that it recedes within 72 hours. What we found is, for instance, if you look at these two particular areas in here, and I know, Mr. Payne, you're familiar with the area because I do recall you meant raising questions about grade differentials from the site and the roads in here. So if you recall, there's a swale in here. That particular swale, because of the grading on site, we're going to be filling that swale to the bottom of the basin. So what happens, in one area there's a cut, but there's also a fill situation. So when you bring in that fill material, what happens is it provides for a greater rate of infiltration. We're not accounting for that, but that's naturally what's going to occur out here. When we do our basins, we'll excavate the area, and rather than have the machines drive over that area, we would look to keep that, actually the areas that were going to be pretty much at grade, we would look to keep that at grade without machines driving over it until the very end. Then we would scoop up that material, regrade it, and what that does is that prevents compaction from the machines, which promotes infiltration, which when you promote the infiltration, it reduces the retention time within the basin. The outlets of the basins are pretty much at the bottom of the basins, so that, again, for during your events, there's going to be some retention time, but again, we do have an infiltration system as well, so that's basically it. You're not going to have a long retention time at the basins.
And our consultants have peer reviewed this?
Again, our consultant will be peer reviewing the new design for stormwater management as well as site design, so they will address that it meets the criteria of the state stormwater management policy.
Thank you.
And then just another follow-up question about the trees and the like. That if I heard him right, he's saying that there's at the back of the project there's going to be an 8 to 10 foot tall retaining wall, and then you're planting these trees on top, and you have 40-foot tall buildings. And yes, I can appreciate what is commented. If you're in a car and you're right up beside it, sure, it's such a steep angle you'll be hard pressed to see over the trees. But I like to point out most of our neighborhood, in fact the entire neighborhood, is set back and below that. So your side angle isn't quite so steep. You're going to be looking more at a very very gentle side angle, at which point this 50-odd foot tall tops of these buildings are still likely going to tower over the trees. It is going to now become the only view from most of our neighborhood if you look north. And again, it all gets back to the density and the size. His explanation for why they can't move further off of the property lines and allow for more vegetation and a better sight line and everything, it all comes back to the density. It is, you have to consider more of the house right next door, absolutely. Those poor folks are going to have this within feet, tens of feet, 100 feet of them, whatever it is. It's not very far. But everybody else in the neighborhood, that's going to become their view. They're going to look north, and you're going to see this towering above, because as you back further away, your side angle, you get a better side angle of everything. And there's smaller and move further away, all of that helps to improve those side angles for us.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond to that. First of all, with respect to the building heights at 50 feet, I don't believe we have building heights at 50 feet. I think they're
No,
around.
Wayne, you don't, but
Okay.
unless you set them on top of your.
Oh, let him
retaining walls,
go.
That's where I got the math from.
Okay, so looking at the building heights again, they're at 40 feet or thereabouts. We're working with what is within our control, within the political boundaries of the property. You know, if we had a greater opportunity to work beyond that, there is town-owned land there, but we're working within the political boundaries of our property to that side. I think we've made quite an effort in here to provide the screening.
Mr. George?
Quick question, those water basins, detention basins, are they going to be maintained or just flow out to a natural state?
So when the basins are constructed, they're going to be subject to the homeowners association's operation and maintenance plan as part of our filing with this board and with the Conservation Commission. The stormwater report contains a draft stormwater pollution prevention plan and an operation and maintenance plan. So as part of the program, the way this works is the drainage infrastructure will be maintained under the requirements of the operation and maintenance plan. With respect to the basins themselves, we tend to seed them with a wild seed mix, so it does grow as a natural type of basin, and that's basically what we're going to have out there.
David McCurry, Stony Hill Road. How tall are all these trees when they first planted? How tall are they going to be?
They vary in height, but you could figure around 15 feet or thereabouts. It's 3-inch caliper tree.
How long does it take before they're mature?
It varies on the species. So when we're looking at the evergreens that we're proposing along the lot lines, your spruces and your white pines tend to grow fairly aggressively. So those, within the first couple of few years, can double in their height, from what I understand. Though actually at 15, I think that's for the smaller trees, but at 15 feet, I know at maturity, they're about 60 to 70 feet, so that's at about 30 years out there. I don't expect to be here in 30 years, but at about 30 years out there. So again, planted at 15 feet. I know that I'm doing a development where trees were planted at 15 feet. In fact, Mr. Hill's familiar with the development in Southborough, where the question had come up, the same question, how fast do the trees grow? That particular developer has a site where he had planted blue spruce, which when planting at 7 years ago were 15 foot high. They're about 25 foot high now.
So is 15?
Excuse me.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is 15 the minimum, or are some of them going to be 6, some of them going to be 8, or is 15 going to be the minimum?
I think 15 is probably going to be the average, or about the pretty much the standard height.
That's two different things.
Standard height.
Is that,
It's going to be about, 12 to 15 feet, I would imagine.
is that called out in the specifications? I haven't had a chance to look through the plans.
I don't believe we specifically called it out on the planting plan.
Can we call that out?
Yeah, it could be a condition. Anybody else? State your name for the record, sir.
Joe Hughes, Stony Hill Road. Have you looked at the possibility to mitigate surges of rainfall into ultimately the pond on phase 2 and this wetland area on phase 1? Have you looked at a cistern system off of the roof water? It's not contaminated with road salt or anything, but that would be a way to A, water all this vegetation. We are in a bit of a drought right now. And B, prevent it from further trickling down into these, environmentally sensitive areas.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, so if I understand, the question was collecting rooftop runoff into a cistern for irrigation. rooftop runoff to environmentally sensitive areas, to wetlands, is a positive. But because of the state stormwater regulations, we're required to recharge. Now, in doing groundwater recharge, we want to recharge clean runoff. So the first source of clean runoff is rooftops. So we collect rooftop runoff. In the event that we have a site that requires additional groundwater recharge, that's when we will collect paved surfaces and route them through a stormwater treatment unit, which cleans the runoff prior to discharge to remove up to at least 80% suspended solids before it makes its way through the system. So basically, to answer the question, we haven't looked at a cistern type system. We have looked at, we've just routed them through the infiltration systems to recharge groundwater.
Yep.
Given the location of these parcels and their significant distance from the town wells, is a private well on site from which they could water the landscaping? Is that a possibility that maybe they draw down on town water supply?
Seen that done?
The town of Shrewsbury does not allow for irrigation from the town water system, so they would be required to have a on-site well if they wanted to use that for irrigation purposes.
Thank you, Kristen.
Anybody else have any questions? State your name for the record, sir.
Here's Makar, Fiscal Drive. So I have a question. The question is there going to be a permanent fence between the new development and the existing houses so that people cannot cross over?
I know the question has come up before, Mr. Chairman. We haven't, as you can see on the plans, haven't proposed one.
Okay.
So can we have that in place?
Usually, we typically don't like fences because
Correct.
of someone
Fences,
has to maintain it.
yeah, fences generally get deteriorated and
Yeah.
are not maintained. Fences actually encourage most likely young people to jump fences and go through them. So generally, we don't require fencing unless it's a screening purposes, and they're showing landscape screening. So for purposes of crossing over the land abutting this property is the town of Shrewsbury's property. So that's open space for anyone to use. So we generally deter from using fencing in this case.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Lisa?
Wayne, I heard you use the word,
Lisa, right?
yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah, I guess the access road is going to be named after me or something.
Actually, I was thinking of that on the way in.
Or you could
Fran?
take one of the buildings in Phase 1 and put it somewhere else and call it
I had a
Lisa.
feeling you were going to bring
Okay,
this
so,
We'll go with the road name.
I heard you mention, and I could be wrong, the word mature when you were talking about the landscaping. And I think we're going to be adding a condition, but Building 4 in Phase 1 and Building 2 in Phase 2, you indicate, I think I'm reading this correctly, it's blue. There are a number of species that could be those around those areas.
That's correct.
And those need to be mature and the highest at maturity is my point, because near those buildings, because those are the ones that are abutting the neighborhood, I think. So of those varieties, for instance, blue spruce, I'm no expert, but I've had these and they're very slow growing compared to the others you list here. So I would just like it spelled out more of those varieties, which ones will be more mature, and perhaps we'll get to it, I guess, but a height requirement for those two areas, that they're 25 feet to begin with, not 15.
That's the sort of thing that can be a condition requiring the submittal of final landscaping plans for the review and approval of this board. That would have those sort of details. That's one of the reasons why I asked the question before with regard to specifications as to what's going to be planted.
And I'm not saying the entire property, but there are certain areas of the property where that would be key.
So you would get that opportunity post-permit
Okay.
when they submit their final plans.
Thank you.
Anyone else up here?
All set.
No? No? No, good. Anybody else? Okay. What else?
So our comment would just be that if the developer has any other presentation for this evening that they'd like to make, if the board would like to hear anything, they're welcome to proceed. After hearing the sewer presentation this evening, it seems that the board may want to request from the applicant an extension. Again, our extension is valid right now for closing of the hearing to July 10th, I believe. However, I don't believe that we can schedule a special meeting between now and then, and I'm not sure if the sewer report can be developed and then peer reviewed by Weston and Sampson at that time. And then we will be requesting a proposal. Again, thank you, Paul, for reminding me, for Graves Engineering to review the site plans as they were revised and the stormwater management as that has been revised.
So we're looking for another extension.
Right. Also, just for note, all of this will be posted on the Town of Shrewsbury's webpage, as we have with the other documentation, if people prefer to review it in that fashion. Obviously, none of this has been posted at this time because we just received it this afternoon or this evening. So, again, you can entertain any additional information from the applicants tonight, but I'd ultimately see if the board could request another extension due to the factors that we heard this evening.
Do you have anything else?
I have the extension letter ready.
Okay.
This is a 30-day, is it going to be beyond 30 days in terms of the next hearing, or we're going to make it in 30 days?
The next hearing will be July 25th, so I believe that's,
We're okay.
so I believe we're okay from, is the extension from,
And I am not available for that night.
so do we want to ask for a 60-day extension from the July 10th?
When's our next meeting? Is July
25th, and Mr. Haverty will not be able to join us that evening.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the 30 days, based on what's open right now from tonight's discussion, what has to be addressed, we on our side can address that well before the 30 days. I think 30 days would give Weston and Sampson adequate time in terms of cleaning up whatever has to be done with AECom. Granted that Paul may not be here.
I think that
Well,
the
we have
bigger
another problem too,
concern,
because one of our members might not be able to be here either.
and Fran, I think the bigger concern is actually getting the civil review and the stormwater review done, sent back to you. You would provide comments, and then there'd be another round. I think 30 days is very aggressive for that process to occur.
If the extension is until July 10th, if that's,
So then-
it is currently, then it would be till August 10th.
Which is still just one meeting.
That's true. I just
So,
wanted to
so
point that
how
out.
how about August 31st? Give us to the end of August, and I think that gives enough time to have 2 more meetings, and should be able to
In
resolve
terms
everything.
of 40B protocol, if we go to, I'm just trying to play this out from a timeline, if we go to August 31st, and the hearings are closed, statutory requirements, how long would it be before a decision is rendered?
40 days. Once the hearing's closed, the board has 40 days to render its decision. Doesn't mean it will take that long, but that's statutorily, that's the time frame. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, on that note, not trying to pin you down, although it sounds that way, but do you think there's a shot at doing a draft decision if there is, if a second hearing after tonight, that there would be a chance of doing a draft decision by the actual end of the hearing? Doesn't mean they have to vote it that night, but it would save time.
Yes.
Yes.
It's already been begun.
Okay.
Certainly not completed, but it is in some form of
All right,
draft.
appreciate that.
That would help.
Mr. Hill?
If I could be heard on this issue, one of the things that we've already recommended and is really 40B protocol is if the board's considering an approval with conditions, that you may want to propose a set of conditions to the applicant before you close the hearing in order for the applicant to then respond with their comments. And if they say that the conditions make their project uneconomic, then you have the opportunity to test those assumptions through a pro forma review. And all that has to happen while the hearing's still open. So it's one thing to do the peer review and get that done in, say, 30 days or 60 days, but then you really should set aside another month, or at least another meeting, to have that process, that back and forth between yourself and the developer on the conditions themselves while the hearing is still open. So I'm just throwing that out there, that you need at least until the end of August.
Yes, yeah, so the pro forma is the financial information that's submitted by the applicant A copy of it was submitted with the original application. Obviously, the data that's involved in that has changed as the project has evolved over the hearing process.
Okay. Here?
Peter Riley, just a question regarding the financial. Is there any type of discussion in an open public meeting regarding the financial side of?
When you say the financial side, what aspect of the financial side are you referring to?
Well, my understanding was that, in addition to sewer, in addition to traffic and all of that, that the applicant was going to provide some type of financial data.
Regarding, my question is regarding what?
I think there's two separate issues here that the chairman is trying to get to. One is, are you discussing a review of the pro forma for the project? Or there was also a discussion at one point that the applicant would do a financial impact analysis, which the board has determined it did not want to receive because it's the sort of information that gets the board into trouble if they try taking it into account.
Personally, I'd like to see both, but certainly would defer to the board. If the board is unable to see anything, I'd like to see something. I think everybody would like to see something.
And again, the way a pro forma analysis works is the board issues a draft decision, and the applicant either instructs the board that it can't live with that decision, that the conditions contained therein render the project uneconomic, or it informs the board, we're okay with this decision, in which case there would be no peer review. It's only when the applicant tells the board that their draft decision renders the project uneconomic that you do a pro forma review. And then the question is for the board is whether they feel it's necessary to do the pro forma review anyhow, or whether they feel that their conditions are justified irrespective of whether or not it renders the project uneconomic.
Okay. So there's nothing that occurs in the open part of this meeting until after the application?
After a draft decision is issued, and only if there is an objection to that draft decision claiming that it renders the project uneconomic. And even at that point, the board is under no obligation to conduct a pro forma review. They can simply state, you're free to tell us that it renders the project uneconomic, but we are adamant on the conditions that we are imposing. Therefore, even if you're telling us it's uneconomic, we're still going to impose those conditions.
And I would argue, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that I don't think there's any reason why the board shouldn't review the pro forma, given that it informs your decision-making. Because if the applicant is going to object to the conditions, let's say hypothetically, their recourse would be to file an appeal with the Housing Appeals Committee. And it's their burden in that appeal to show that these conditions render the project uneconomic. So doing the pro forma review gives you the opportunity to understand how much leverage you may have if there's an appeal, and informs really the decision that you're making, whether or not you should impose those conditions in the first place. I think that this project, based on what we know so far, I don't see a justifiable reason to deny it. And if there was, I'd tell you, because my clients would rather see this be denied. If you deny the project, it's likely to be overturned. Right. If you approve it with conditions, you have a good shot at winning, but you really should understand whether or not those conditions are going to be uneconomic or not. And so I would just leave enough time at the end of the hearing to run through that process.
And that's nothing that would get peer reviewed, correct?
No, you can do a peer review of the pro forma. You can only do it, though, after you follow that procedure.
So it doesn't make sense to do it ahead of time.
You can't do it ahead of time.
Right. Okay.
You're not allowed to.
Okay. State your name for the record.
Joe Taylor, Stony Hill Road. I'm so happy this finally came up. I've been thinking for months about the timeline, so thank you for bringing it up. Paul, I have a question for you, and then I have a question for Fran. So let's just take a timeline, August, board makes a decision September-ish. After that, that's when they go in front of the conservation? Or what's all the permitting?
My understanding is that they're filing their notice of intent with the Conservation Commission this week.
Okay, so
which means the hearing process will start
when do they get a building permit?
in July.
That's my question. When do they get a building permit to start building? And then the question for Fran is, when do shovels go in the ground?
So that is a question that really can't be answered with any specificity at this point. There's significant post-permit approvals that'll be necessary. Just as part of the 40B process, they're going to have to go back to the subsidizing agency. They're going to have to get final approval. And that requires preparing a new application, submitting it to them, waiting out the process. You have to get all of your regulatory documents prepared. You have to get your financing commitment from a bank. That can take 3 or 4 months easily, sometimes longer. they're going to have to go through the process with DOT with regard to the state highway access permit. So there's a fair amount of post-approval permitting still necessary. So you can't really say when they would be requesting their building permit. But quite frequently, it's more than a year after the actual comprehensive permit is issued.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you were talking.
It's not going to be a week afterwards.
No, it's going to be
The appeal period ends.
next fall-ish. I'm just trying to get a feel for what.
I couldn't possibly fathom them getting there that quickly. You mean fall of 2017?
Yeah, like fall of.
Much more likely, and it may take longer than that. Who knows?
Okay, thank you.
Where are we on extension? No, it's summertime. Fred can't even make the next one.
Mr. Chairman, if we go to August 31st.
Yep.
I think that will solve all the outstanding issues. Hopefully, we have a quorum at that point, so it doesn't go beyond that, and we can wrap things up in the interim of all the loose ends that we brought up tonight, which there are not that many left. If council can work together to look at the draft decisions in the meantime, so we know when we get to that benchmark back in the end of August, we'll have everything ready to go. Excuse me, that would be, probably the way to look at this.
Okay, so do you want to try to set up an August hearing as well now? So that
We do have an August meeting date, 29th.
August 29th, but the other question I have is, have you missed any of the hearings on this one?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you can do them all.
Yes.
Mullen will. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So what Mullins means for the applicant and the audience is that if Mr. Confaloni cannot make the next meeting, he'll be able to review the tape and the minutes and be able to sit and vote at the next meeting per the Mullins law that the Board of Selectmen have adopted.
chooses an order. Okay. So my calendar always chooses a different date than the one I put in.
Okay, so we're good till August 31st? So our next meeting is July
25th.
25th. Date and time certain will be 6:45. That would be an optimistic time. Because we'll schedule all the same as we do every time. We'll schedule our hearings before that for 6:30, depending on how quickly we can get through them. And then the meeting subsequent to that will be August 29th. And hopefully by then we'll be able to resolve.
Next meeting is what, Mr. Chairman?
July 25th.
July 25th?
6:45.
Is there any chance, I know if you have a regular meeting on the 29th, it's tough on you, but at least I'll ask, any chance of doing a meeting on the 22nd, August 22nd, just in case there's some last minute things, even if it's...
Hang on 1 second. That's the day after I get back from vacation, so it's good by me.
So we can clarify if we need it or not at the
Right,
July
at the next
25th meeting.
yeah. If we do an August 22nd meeting, it will be the only thing we do, will be this.
Okay, so you don't know yet? I mean,
We'll see what we do at the next meeting.
well, we wouldn't want to lose August 29th if we...
We're not, August
We're not.
29th is our regularly scheduled
So we
meeting.
would, worst case, we would be
The 29th.
29th.
If
No,
need
that's
be,
fair
we'll do
enough,
the
sure.
22nd. And again, it's
I understand.
summertime, it's hard to get scheduled the second meetings.
22nd at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, no, 7 o'clock on the 22nd.
That's a held date and time.
Yeah.
We'll decide for sure on July
We'll decide
25th.
on the 25th of July.
Okay.
Okay. Before we continue the hearing for tonight, does anyone have anything else that they want heard? Can I have your letter?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just going to change it, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I think you need to say...
second is because I collapsed during my seventh road race today.
Oh,
I guess I can
thank you for this one.
I'm nowhere near ready.
No?
No. Summers go fast, don't they?
And again, after this hearing is done, we still have some other business to complete, so if people could take their conversation all the way down to the front hall, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Ready to vote on everything?
Yeah, let's take like about a 2-minute recess.
Sure.
So did we didn't officially vote and continue, did we?
Oh,
We
Why don't we
should
do that
yeah,
first?
let's sit down first. Let's, yeah,
I haven't moved yet.
can we get a motion to continue
Move
the
to
hearing
continue this hearing of the,
till July 25th?
to July 25th at 6:45.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, now let's take a
Now
2-minute recess.
Thanks, folks. Have a safe and happy Fourth.
Thank you. Have a little O2 in here.
Oh, thanks for getting
The end date won't go on the next meeting.
Take that to clock in tomorrow.
Thanks.
Thank you. Night.
Good night.
Good night.
What's nice about the Mullins is you can like fast forward, rewind.
Yeah, you get to watch it. Zoom in.
Zoom in.
Yeah, I think it's totally.
Yeah, full screen.
I'm looking at it.
Can't zoom in.
Yep. It's like golf, you only get one mulligan.
Where are you on vacation?
I'm on business, I'm gonna be down, it's very exciting, down the Harlem River Yard in the Bronx. So,
What's that?
You don't want to go.
this is not a pretty section.
Oh, really? Oh, boy.
It's Waste Management's rail transfer system for New York City.
So, probably
Not sure yet.
bad girls and boys.
Around there? Or nobody, right? Nobody.
That's more down Hunts Point Avenue,
Yeah.
you know, but this is, you know, bad boys and girls that probably more like rob you, you know, but,
Yeah, right.
you,
Oh, you're gonna,
just make
you're
sure
not
you.
leaving us,
No,
right?
go to the bathroom.
Okay.
At 77 years old, sometimes have
I only said 2 minutes, but I'll give you
Yeah,
more time.
give
There
it a
you
little
go.
bit more.
We won't time you,
Careful
Mel.
out there.
Don't run.
Oh, there's a water somewhere here.
Yeah, that-
Yeah, my sister's watching my daughter because my husband's out tonight and tomorrow night.
Kristen, how is motherhood?
Well, it's gonna be ×2 in November.
Hey, congratulations. My last two are 10 months apart.
in a sense.
Rarely.
Okay.
All right, let me see if Olivia is.
Yep.
How you doing?
Good, you missed the chatter. Okay, thank you.
I don't have any.
All right, all set.
Okay, so let's go back
Can you
to
see my dogs?
Main Street, South Tower.
Oh, yeah. Get back to the notes.
Selco. Yeah, Selco. The Selco Partnership Verizon Wireless.
And this is CELL.
CEL, not the town Selco, correct. Any
I don't have any problem with it.
questions, concerns, issues?
No,
I always have problems, but no issues.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Did you want to include that condition, Mel?
Which one, about the repeater?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like them to put a
Sure.
repeater in.
Can we do that as?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah,
We've done it
we've done it in the
before.
past, multiple times.
For the fire department?
Yeah,
Yeah, fire or police.
fire, police want something there.
That's a good idea.
If they do, if they want it, yeah.
I move
They
to
weren't
approve with the conditions that Mel suggested regarding the repeater for the police or fire department.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, Shrewsbury Engineering Department?
That the salt shed?
Yes, it is.
No problem.
Move to approve.
So we
Well,
have to
we
make
have two.
two.
We have a request for withdrawal, so we need the, first let's do the withdrawal of the variance, because they didn't need a variance.
Okay.
To grant the request for withdrawal.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And next is special permit to remove and replace the existing non-conforming shed. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There's two sheets. Bay State All-Star Cheer and Dance LLC.
Cell tower.
This is a use variance.
I think this is his third move.
This
Is it
really
their
is.
third move?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I have no problem with it.
Anyone?
No changes, same
The same-
conditions and hours as
Same
before.
building.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
Second.
All,
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yeah. Need a fork truck for that one.
Next,
I know.
is you, because I can't do it.
Glendale Ave, because that was
555.
Main Street. 555 Main Street signage.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
There's three votes here. There's two special permits and a variance. So I don't know if you want to approve them all at one time
Let's
or
approve
separate.
them all at one time.
I have no problem with
I
that.
have no problem.
Problem either.
I think it looks actually better.
Yeah.
It does. It's going to be an improvement.
Do I have a second?
Oh, we let's
Aye.
vote on all three?
All three.
Opposed to one?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. 315, 347 Main Street, the Verizon Selco partnership, not our Selco, has been unanimously approved.
That was a little deceiving at first.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I mean, who spelled Selco like that? Then it was clear.
Kristen, do we know how much taxes they're gonna pay?
You'll have to ask Mr. Reedy of what the equipment is valued at.
I will.
Imagine that number will go down every year.
Oh, yeah.
I got you.
205, 211 South Street, the town salt shed has been unanimously approved.
Michelle, when you get a chance, can you send out the date of the next two meetings? The August ones? So that I can put it in my book?
Well, it's on your
Just the one
regular
Lisa-
schedule, but one of them isn't decided yet.
Yeah, we don't know about the August 22nd.
Oh,
one yet.
okay.
That's a tentative,
555 Main Street, you were on.
depending on what happens
Yes,
at the July
555 Main.
25th.
Okay, so
Yep,
Okay.
I should be on there.
should sign it.
You should sign it.
Yep.
And Mel, right? Yeah, Mel has to also. It was just Ron who wasn't part of that one.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for, yeah.
And you have
two
to
of
do
'em?
3.
There's 3, yep. Bay State, yep. That's 1. That's Mel.
Here you go, dear.
Uh, 545 Hartford Turnpike has been unanimously approved.
There you go. This stuff is normal. Wait, say.
555 Main Street has been unanimously approved for the special permit.
Okay. New business.
We actually have one last public hearing, if you wouldn't mind reading that into the record for the amendments to the ZBA rules and regulations.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6:45 hearing. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 9, the Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 27th, 2016 at 6:45 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room at the Richard Carney Municipal Office Building, 100 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. To update the rules and regulations of the ZBA Zoning Board of Appeals in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts as follows. Amend Article 4, hearings. Amend Article 4, disposition by the board. Correction of the number of the article. The complete text of the proposed document is available in the office of the Building Department at the Municipal Office Building, 100 Maple Ave, Shrewsbury, Mass.
Sure, thank you. The board has in their packets a memorandum from Patty Sheehan, the building inspector, dated May 25th. We're looking to discuss 2 amendments to the ZBA rules and regulations. The first is quite minor. There was an error that we have 2 Article 4s listed. Article 4 is hearings and Article 4 as disposition by the board, so we're just looking to renumber, but unfortunately we actually have to hold a public hearing to do that renumbering process, but it came as a good time. Also, there's been discussion between the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board on public notification in terms of the advertisement in the paper, as well as notification to abutters. As some of you may be aware, the Planning Board requires that the planner drafts the legal notice and the applicant sends out the notice to abutters and the notice to the newspaper. Now, in that sense, generally, the applicant to the planning board is a consulting firm or an engineer who generally does these things for a living. Ms. Sheehan has asked the board to investigate if the Zoning Board of Appeals, which currently they send out the legal ad and the abutter notification to the abutters could be 5 abutters, it could be 3,000 abutters, depending on where the location is in town. They're asking for the board to discuss whether the applicant should be required to send out that abutter notification. Again, I did a small survey just today, but I hope to have some more information. I hope that the board will actually not vote on this evening and continue it for another meeting in case people are watching and have questions, or we want more time to think about it. I surveyed 4 towns, and one of the 4 towns requires the applicant to do the abutter notification. The other 3, the town is required to do that abutter notification. I also want to look at the state statute for special permits and variances to see if there's anything in that statute that requires the town to do the notification. I spoke with an attorney today that led me to believe that it may still be a requirement of the town to do the notification, so I want to clarify that. And also just clarify that we have a lot more homeowners doing their applications on their own to the zoning board, so is it the right fit to make someone do their own abutter notifications?
Well,
And the reason why this came up?
This came up as a request from the building inspector's office.
It's a time and money matter, correct? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well-
we've only got so much manpower to make these things happen.
Can we tier it? Like, say if it's under 100, the
I
town would do
think
it?
that
If it's over-
that's making even, in my opinion,
complicated.
even more work and even more complication. But I'm only one opinion.
I asked if we could approve this, and if it doesn't seem to be working out, we could always vote it
Change this
into.
again, yeah.
It's just that the building inspector's office is swamped with work that,
may or may not be necessary.
right.
What are the problems with this being, let's say it's not done right?
Yeah,
Correct.
it's not, how do you enforce an
Then you'd have to
applicant do this?
you'd have to do a whole new public hearing. The applicant would be
Yeah.
held up another month. That would be the
applicant,
implication.
though, to do it properly.
Right.
It would.
Yeah.
It's the education of the applicant to
Right.
do it properly.
And then what's the monitoring process?
Right.
Well, we would get the green cards.
Well, the other question would
Then we
be,
have to
do
check
we
the
do
green
green
cards.
cards or do we do just proof of mailing at the post office? There's
That's
two
what's-
level. Green
That's what
cards are,
most other towns do.
green
Proof of
cards are,
purchase?
yeah, proof of purchase. Green cards are almost $6.50 a piece right now. So you think of like a White City property, that was over a $5,000 mailing. So those are things, that's why I want to
Lakeway
talk about this
Plaza.
in two meetings.
Is that more than that?
Which one?
Lakeway Plaza?
No, that's less
less.
because there's no condos associated with the
Yeah.
butter.
Green isn't there, yeah.
So I mean, it's something that we could think
Is
about.
there any precedent with commercial applicants versus residential applicants?
Well, I mean, there's one straight filing fee right now for a special permit or a variance. So we would have to look at our fee structure as well. And again, does that complicate the issue? Does that require the building inspector's office to spend more time or less time with the applicant to determine what tier they fall into?
I think the thing that would behoove us the most, or the information we don't have, is whether Mass General Law requires.
Right, I just
Yeah.
wrote that
Yeah,
down.
and because it becomes a moot point.
Right,
So
absolutely.
there's nothing to discuss at that point.
And I can't imagine that if the public is listening to this now and they'd like to comment on it, I can't imagine them coming here at the next meeting and say, oh, yeah,
I'll do that.
let us do it. I don't see that that's going to be the response.
Well, that's why I feel at times you can't have just one hearing. Because the first time you have the first hearing is the first time they claim
Right.
they've ever heard of it.
Right.
And then the
Right.
second time, you get some input.
Well, I'm just saying, I can only anticipate that they would object.
We know the
So-
town that-
Yes.
So that being said, can I get a motion to continue this?
Well, we have two
I
members
know,
doing it.
I want to continue just this one.
With the issue regarding.
issue of the mailings.
Mailings.
Yeah.
We're continuing the entire discussion about the rules and regulations upgrade or revisions.
We can vote on 4 and 5, the men's.
I would keep everything open and vote it
Yeah,
open.
okay.
Yeah, I would keep everything open.
Yeah, I move that we continue this hearing till our next regular
Can I get a
scheduled
second?
meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And if you have any personal comments or feel free to reach me separately or Patty or Michelle separately within the next month, and we can have a conversation. But we'll continue the
How
discussion
much would it be
next week.
if we just do a non-certified mailing? How much less is that?
But then how do we know?
But it depends on the number of abutters. Like I said
Yeah.
before, you could have 5 abutters, which non-certified mailing, 50 cents, rounding up
Yeah.
50 cents a stamp versus 1,000 abutters, versus 60.
We haven't signed an affidavit.
Well, we could do, are we doing green cards now?
No.
But we're doing them
We do
ourselves,
the
so we
mailing,
know.
so
Right,
we're
right.
proving to ourselves that we're doing it correctly.
So who would be liable? The applicant would have to go to the post office and prove.
We should move to text messages.
Right, there you go.
Move the text.
Go by
So-
text.
I got one man, that's the only way he
Certified text.
communicates with me. And I can't read him.
Okay, new business.
So new business discussion to reschedule the September meeting date. Currently, we're on the schedule for September 26th. The Board of Selectmen will be calling a special town meeting for September 26th. So Michelle has checked the calendar, and if we do want to have a September meeting, it would be September 19th.
What night is that?
Monday
Monday.
night, just
Still
as the week
Monday.
before.
Around for that.
I have no problem with that.
Fred, you good?
I'm around for that, yes, yep. It's the following week.
So we'll just have to adjust the
Yep.
filing deadline.
Lisa, are you good for that, just in case
Yep.
if 40B gets
Yep.
continued again?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that is good.
Okay, so we'll change the calendar on that, and for those town meeting members, hopefully you'll still be able to make it to special town meeting. And then old business master plan update, as you hopefully are aware, the planning board recommended the master plan, the town meeting adopted received the report, and tomorrow evening I'll be before the Board of Selectmen asking them to appoint a master plan implementation committee. So stay tuned, and if you're interested on serving on a master plan implementation committee, the Board of Selectmen should have more information after tomorrow evening.
And can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?